All right, everybody give a hand for Michael. Wes Cross is the founder and head designer for Cross Armory. Cross Armory makes quick release pins for AR-15s so that you have a choice when it comes to registering your ARs as an assault weapon. Wes, welcome. Craig DeLuz is the legislative advocate for the Firearms Policy Coalition. Firearms Policy Coalition is a nonprofit organization that advocates for individual liberties and important constitutional rights, including Second Amendment lawsuits, education, and state lobbying. Craig, welcome.
Craig DeLuz.
All right, so let's get right into it while everybody's still getting seated, but we're going to go with another broad question to kind of get out of the gate here. How do you explain the right to keep and bear arms to someone who does not understand or believe in it? Laura, why don't you?
I think if they don't understand it, then your kind of belief doesn't even come into it. I think those are two different questions. The way I look at the Second Amendment is a lot of what I hear is, but we don't need this. And my response to, if you want to get rid of the Second Amendment, you better be ready to get rid of your right to an abortion, your right to a free press, your right to free speech, your right to not have your home invaded in search and seizure, and many, many other things under the Constitution. That's a separate issue from, I don't understand, what does the Second Amendment do? And when I talk about that, I say, look, the Second Amendment protects our rights as citizens to be free from tyranny. And tyranny is not just the federal government. It's the right to not have the cops come bang in my door because they don't like something I said, or what's been happening in my little town, it's the right from, if I run for the city council and go against somebody powerful on the city council, it keeps them from being able to drag me away and arrest me because I decided to run for office. And I talk about things like that on a much more micro, local level because it plays a lot better, because everybody's defense is, well, you can't have a tank. Well, you can if you can afford it, but it's not practical. But that's kind of what everybody thinks. Oh, we can't have a tank. Okay, but the cops aren't coming with a tank. They're coming with a gun that's similar to my AR.
I would say that, first of all, it's important to start off by talking about the fact that it's a constitutionally enumerated civil right. It's important for us to understand that the term civil rights means those are fundamental rights that are available to all citizens. It's not, as some would have you believe, special rights or special privileges for special people. But it's all of those enumerated rights, and they're enumerated in the Constitution. And because it's enumerated in the Constitution, here's the thing. You don't have to agree with it or even believe in it because it's there. You don't have to believe in the force of gravity. But let me tell you something. If you step off the roof of this building, you will find out that the force of gravity applies to you. And that's the way in which we need to talk about enforcing the Second Amendment, the same way we would the right against unreasonable search and seizure, private property rights, the right to free speech, the right to the freedom of association. We need to demand that the same level of respect be given. And just, I'd like to do it by comparing it to the very same things. What if I said that you could only buy one book a year? Or what if I said that, what if we passed a law that said we're only going to have these certain recognized state religions. Everything else we're just going to throw out. I mean, people would be livid if we treated any of the other civil rights the same way in which we do the right to keep and bear arms. And then finally, I'll just say this, is part of this is understanding that the right to keep and bear arms, the Second Amendment, all it does, it enumerates it. It doesn't mean that that's where the right comes from. It comes from the fundamental human right to be able to defend oneself. And anybody who's ever had anybody that they cared about knows that sometimes the right to defend those you care about is even more important than the right to defend yourself. And I think those are the certain things that people need to understand is the basis for the conversation. Not hunting, not sports shooting, or not target shooting, but that fundamental human right to be able to defend oneself.
That last point is, I think, extremely strong. Everything they said is right on, and the strength we have is that we're right. All the facts are on our side, but one of the weaknesses in the way we talk about it is we don't talk about emotion. I believe in the Second Amendment because I care about people. And I think everybody out here cares about people too. And when we get real hung up on, well, was it 800,000 people or 600,000 people, you know, these statistics and, 20% of people or no, it's 18% of people. I don't think we take near enough time to talk about the fact that we care about people. That's why we want them to be able to defend themselves. We recently were able to loosen up the restrictions and limitations and ridiculousness with the San Diego CCW process. One of the first people I sent in to get a CCW was my wife, because I want her to be able to defend herself. So I think that we don't do ourselves justice if we don't talk about that emotion and we don't talk about how important people are to us, which is the very reason. We don't talk about how, hey, kids are important to us, women are important to us. People are important to us. That's why we want them to be able to have the right to keep and bear arms, because they matter. They matter.
Yeah, I agree with Michael, especially because the right to keep and bear arms, in a conversation with, let's call it the opposition, they think that that is the right to shoot somebody, right? That's how they are interpreting it, right? That's not how we interpret it. We see it as a right to protect, and that's where the conversation should be.
Well, it's interesting because the word activism is thrown around in a lot of ways. So let's talk about activism. What is activism? Michael?
Activism is, let's talk about what it's not. As important as lawsuits are, lawsuits and knowing about lawsuits, that's not activism. It's good to know, and it's important, and we need people out there filing lawsuits on our behalf, and please fund the organizations that file these lawsuits, but that's not activism. Arguing on Facebook is not activism. Posting a meme is not activism, that's slacktivism. Activism is getting involved with your community, getting involved with your circle of influence and your friends. Activism is making sure that you're taking the right steps with the people who really can make decisions, and in our case, it's elected officials, to make sure that they understand what you believe and that you are putting in the work that it takes to influence their political future, and to make sure that the people who are making decisions are the ones that you want making those decisions, people that agree with you. And in politics, there's really only two things you can do to influence politics, and that's people and money. You can get more people and more money. That's it. And it's easy to sit down and craft an argument and think, well, gee, this is the absolute perfect thing to say. But the reality is that a lot of people, it doesn't matter. If the other side has more people and more money, then they win. So activism is that type of organizing and that type of engagement with people that make important decisions about your life. So that's why we focus on your city council member, your sheriff, your county board, people that you see every single day. You see fairly often. They're in your backyard, right? You can actually go to a meet and greet. You can go to a coffee with them and call them up and say, hey, I want to meet with you. So I believe that activism is getting out there and being influential over people right here in your backyard that can make decisions involving your rights in your life.
I would agree with that, except I would say that, the Firearms Policy Coalition 4.5 years ago didn't exist. Now we have over 500,000 people who, through the various social media platforms, follow us. We fund our entire advocacy organization in California, Washington, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. We fund it all online. And I want to say this: utilizing the tools, the key communication tools that are available to us every day, are important. So I don't want to take away from the importance of utilizing social media as a way in which to organize and inform, but it must be strategic. And when I say that, I'll give you an example. Do me a favor, just reach in your pocket and just take, if you have a smartphone, just take out your smartphone and hold it up. Now, anyone who likes the Firearms Policy Coalition on Facebook, I am in your pocket. I can send information right now, and I can reach out to you directly right now. It is a way in which to reach people and connect to people. But it's important to be strategic about it. How we communicate, what activism is. In other words, and this is where I think what Mike is talking about, eventually whatever you are doing, whatever you are saying has to lead someone to take action. It has to be about getting someone to call their legislator or call their city council member, to go to a city council meeting, to contribute to a particular effort, whatever it is. But our sphere of influence is both in the physical, but it's also in the technological. And so it's important for us to be strategic in that. A lot of times I find that, for example, instead of arguing with somebody, I can just post an article that speaks to whatever it is that they want to say. And some people have asked me, well, why do you engage in those conversations? I said, it's not to educate. It's not because I want to educate the person I'm arguing with. They've made up their mind. But you never know who is looking, who is listening. The other thing is it's an opportunity to educate yourself. But activism has got to be about trying to do something, communicating, connecting with, eventually with the goal of getting people to take action to influence public policy.
And I feel like our community, our gun community, we're typically the strong, silent type. You know, we walk softly and carry a big stick. And we need to spend a little more time talking with our friends and our family members and other people, just letting them know that we do like to shoot. And yeah, we've got a gun. Oh, weird, you've got one too. And then that builds a sort of community, and then it grows into something where maybe when someone gets inspired, and then they build it bigger and bigger, and then we can actually get some stuff done. So even if it's a small contribution in conversation, it can go a long way to inspire someone else.
And one of the things I think about activism is that all four of us up here have different spheres. I mean, I know Craig really well. I've been on his show. I know Michael. I've spoken to your group. Michael's actually called me and said, hey, how can we work together? My group and my activism is targeted at a specific audience that is not normally targeted in the gun world on purpose. That is my specific activism, and it is specific and strategic and purposeful, and I am extraordinarily brand protective of that because it is my sphere of influence. And so when you are an activist, you can't be all things to all people in the world you are trying to affect. And so it's really important as an activist to drill down as to what is your purpose in your sphere and work in that part of the world.
Great. So we understand what activism is, so walk us through, each of you, what your organizations are doing to fight back or respond back to what's going on around us every day. I mean, the Second Amendment is constantly under attack. We as gun owners are constantly under attack. What are your organizations doing? And then we're going to follow that up with, what's the one thing that just one thing. What's one thing that every person can do to make a difference this weekend or next week?
We're all chomping at the bit of this question. This is the one that we're all, Craig, why don't you go first?
Sure. Well, the Firearms Policy Coalition largely started because one of the things that we didn't feel like, or people who founded us, Brandon Combs and a number of other folks, realized was that they didn't see that there was an entity that was utilizing new technology and new media in order to be able to reach, in particular, groups of people who weren't already a part of the Second Amendment community. Our organization is largely we have a very diverse organization, a lot of women, a lot of immigrants, a lot of people, Democrats, Republicans. We are neither a conservative group nor a liberal group nor a libertarian. And I happen to be a conservative. I'm a card-carrying member of the vast right-wing conspiracy. But one of the things that I think that was important for us was the first thing we did is we are a Second Amendment civil rights advocacy group. We will work with anybody who's willing to promote and push policy in that particular area. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, liberal, conservative. I don't care where you stand on public safety. I don't care where you stand on education. It's not what I'm here for. It's not what we're here for. So what we decided to do was, once again, utilize things like email, utilize social media, utilize videos, and then build our website in such a way where what we would do is we go and we look at the legislation that's been introduced or is being introduced. We would take a look at it. We would analyze it. We would provide talking points or specific points as well as links that anyone can follow if they want to go read the bill and get more information. We would do a video on each bill to talk about what it is that the bill does, and then provide within 1 or 2 clicks, you can then send an email to members the specific members who will be voting on that particular measure next. Then we take that and then we send it out via email. We send it out through Facebook, through Twitter, through YouTube, whatever ways in which we have in which to organize and get people engaged and involved, and work to then get them engaged and plugged into that process in order to know about that legislation. So that is in essence what we do, and we do that in California, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, and now Washington, D.C. So I say that to say that one, utilizing new technology, recognizing that the tools that are available to us. And what's been great is now we're starting to see even the other Second Amendment advocacy groups here in the state of California are starting to do the same thing. If there's something that you see that is not being done, that you can't convince some organization or somebody out there that's doing it now, you can't get them to do it, guess what? Maybe that is your calling. Maybe your calling is to get involved and create an organization or an entity that will do that specific thing. Anyway, so that kind of gives you a general rule of the things that we do. Now, what we also do is we marry that with traditional lobbying. I am in the Capitol on a daily and weekly basis, meeting with legislators, meeting with their staff, meeting with people who are reading and evaluating bills, and sharing with them information on relating to their bills. I don't just meet with Republicans or pro-gun people. I meet with the anti-gun people too, because I never want a member to be able to go into a committee and say, well, I didn't know this. Well, if you don't know this, it's because either your staff didn't tell you or you weren't listening when you and I sat down and talked. And then we work to then, once again, share and provide that information. If you go on most of the bills in California, if you go and you read the bill analyses by either the Senate or the Assembly committees, you'll notice Firearms Policy Coalition is often quoted. We pride ourselves on something, we may be snarky, we may be, we may be smart asses, but we are generally right on the policy. We generally are correct in terms of what we say a policy does or does not do. And then instead of saying, okay, we're also not an organization, we don't donate money to candidates. We're the type of an organization, we tell members this: if you vote right and you vote to help protect our Second Amendment rights or extend our Second Amendment rights, we will let our folks know. And if you do the exact opposite, if you vote against us, if you carry a bill that is going to harm our Second Amendment rights, we will also let them know. And that's what we do, is we try to be a megaphone, letting people know what is going on at the Capitol. We show committee hearings, so you can actually have an opportunity to see what they're saying and the information that's coming forward. Did you want us to answer both of those questions, like in terms of what next?
Well, yeah. What can people do, as they walk out of here and this is fresh in their mind? What do they do tomorrow to either champion or
I'll just be
support?
honest with you. The one thing that you can make sure that you do is that you go on Facebook and you like Firearms Policy Coalition, or just if you type in gun policy. And the reason why I say that is it's information. And information is power, knowing what's going on. We don't only share news about what's going on in the gun rights community, but we also specifically educate you and provide you information and opportunity for activation in terms of having an impact on that legislation. If there was one thing I would say that would be, and by the way, do something. Don't just, it's one thing to talk about it, and talking about it is great, but if you're just talking about it, you're a cheerleader. And I played football all the time growing up, and I love cheerleaders, but cheerleaders don't win football games. People who are on the field, active and engaged, those are the players in the field, those are the ones who win the game.
Well, thank you. What you do is awesome. I'm not nearly as impressive as the rest of the folks here, but what we do at my company is engineer products for the laws. And it's not as sexy and as impactful, but what it does do is it allows you to keep your firearm, and it empowers, us as a community, because now we're not turning it in, we don't have to register it. And what we also do is we use a lot of social media to try and encourage people to get out in the community, to build their personal community with their friends and their family in the shooting sports so that we have a stronger voice. And our voice isn't just, we're trying to sell stuff. Our target is to help everyone in the community with compliance. So if you've got a gun, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to fix it, our aim isn't to just sell you stuff. We'll point you in the right direction, whether it's ours or it's somebody else's. The idea is to support our community, and that's where the whole thing started, and that's where we want to keep it going.
What should they do? What's the next thing they should do tomorrow?
Oh, tomorrow? Tonight, follow him on Facebook, sign up with Michael Schwartz, and if you do have a gun and you're worried about what to do, you can always give us a call or go on the website, and we'll talk you through it, and we'll tell you, what you can do with regards to registering or buying, but make sure you don't get caught in an unfortunate situation where you're calling one of the guys from the lawyer panel from a special room with bars in it.
You never want to talk to any of the guys on the lawyer panel except at a forum like this, right? You never want to have to talk to those guys.
Right, yeah. The website's crossarmory.com. There's a phone number on there too, so we're on the phone and answering emails all day long regarding the compliance, and you can send us pictures and we'll help you, and we'll send you links to whatever you need to get. Like I said, whether it's ours or not, we're just trying to build the community. That's how the whole thing started. Built it for a bunch of friends and kind of grew from there. So we want to keep our friends in arms.
So San Diego County Gun Owners has been around for about 2.5 years, and by far, more than any other organization, Firearms Policy Coalition has helped us immensely from the get-go. Immediately put their arms around us and said, yeah, whatever you guys need, let us know. And Brandon's been fantastic, and everybody up there has been really fantastic. There have been times when the media has called me and said, all right, we want you to talk about this. And I say, okay, great, let's do it. Yeah, 2 hours from now, we'll talk about that. And my next phone call is to Brandon. Brandon, I don't know anything about this, so you need to. And it's maybe not that dramatic, but he'll, they spend the time educating us. But what we do is complicated and simple at the same time. We want to organize the community in San Diego, the Second Amendment community. We want to make sure that we have the resources and the membership to make sure that everybody in San Diego who's elected respects your Second Amendment rights, period. We don't want anybody in San Diego to feel like there's some kind of second-class citizen for exercising their Second Amendment rights. So we want to make sure that you're not the only gun owner that you know, that you don't have to sneak around and say, yeah, I went to the range, oh, somebody's coming, shh. We want to make sure that the, hundreds of thousands of gun owners in San Diego have a voice, and that nobody gets elected in San Diego without going through us. And the hole that we saw on the front line when we sat down a few years ago and said, gee, what can we do? How can we do more? Was at the local level. There just isn't enough resources. There's a lot of organizations, CRPA, NRA, GOC, that are doing a great job up in Sacramento. Firearms Policy Coalition, everybody's doing a great job in Sacramento. There's a lot of great organizations that are doing a great job in Washington, D.C., but they just don't have the resources to be able to get down into Main Street. So I tell people all the time, 3.5 million people in San Diego makes us bigger than 19 states. There's 18 city councils, school boards, county board of supervisors, sheriff. There are a lot of races out there that we can get in and be competitive if we're just organized enough. So that's what we do. We organize the gun community, the Second Amendment community in San Diego, and we raise the resources, and that includes people and money, to get the right people elected, because those are the ones that are going to step up and Craig's going to have to work with when they get to Sacramento, or they're going to run for Washington, D.C. They're the ones that are going to move up in the political arena. So what's one thing that you can do tomorrow? And I think this is crucial. Everybody take a half hour tomorrow, tops, and find out who are your city council members, who's your mayor, who's your congressman, who's your county board of supervisor, who's on your school board. find out. There are so many people. When I started getting involved and engaged with local politics, I realized there are so many boards and committees and councils out there that make so many decisions about your life. It's amazing we can get anything done on a daily basis. We're all very focused on the White House and Congress, and then the interest kind of trickles away as it, or I should say that it kind of dissipates as it trickles down. But really, it's the people that are deciding how much your water costs, that really have an impact on your life. It's the people that are deciding how to educate your kids. They're the ones that are having an impact on your life. The people that are deciding whether or not you can defend yourself when you're outside of the home, they're having an impact on your everyday life. And if we went to a Walmart parking lot and polled people, they wouldn't know who the heck these people are. They wouldn't know if they're even allowed to vote for the sheriff or not. They wouldn't know if they even have a city council member or not. And it just amazes me. But what's even more amazing is when you do engage, when you do know who they are, and you approach them and engage and organize and do it the right way, we can move mountains. We can move mountains. So that's tomorrow. Wake up, grab a glass of orange juice, and figure out who represents your political interests, who represents you and is elected, and then go and meet them, go talk to them, and tell them what's important.
So our organization is a different organization. We started about 10 years ago, and what we really started as was a small forum on the web for gun owners who fall to the left of center, and we have everything from libertarians to anarcho-communists, and I'm not kidding about that. Our membership is everything left of center. And that was how we originally started, was, wow, places like Cal Guns forums are really unfriendly to people with alternative political views. Let's find a spot that we can go talk about guns without being attacked because we believe in climate change. Well, then what happened was it started to expand more. There's kind of this idea, and if you look around this room, you understand why, that guns are the province of 50-year-old conservative white men. And the reality is, in a poll that came out just a couple of months ago, more than a quarter of Democratic households identify as having a gun in them. It's not the province of who we think it is. And so our club started to expand, and we said, what do we really want to do? Because now we sort of have this niche. And our focus is education, and we do education on 3 prongs. One, if you do not want to be a member of the NRA, and there are many, many people who do not want to be members of the NRA, especially under the current leadership, although I'm really thrilled with some of the people who are running for the board, and I'm hoping it's a sign of change. If you do not want to be a member of the NRA, but you want to learn to be a certified shooting instructor, there are not a whole lot of places you can go. We have a program for that. Grant Cunningham wrote our defensive pistol. We have a really excellent basic pistol. We can certify you as an instructor, so we do education for current gun owners who want to become instructors and want to become level up. We do basic gun instruction. If you want to learn how to fire a gun, but you're not comfortable going to an NRA certified instructor, we have instructors who can teach you. We also do education writ large. What is the Second Amendment? What is the Second Amendment community? What do these things mean? What are things like, you can't understand the number of people who really don't understand, why do you guys care about this definition of what an assault weapon is? People really don't know it. There are so many people, and we forget this because to us it's second nature. There are so many people who are afraid of guns because the only place they've ever seen one is strapped to the hip of a cop. That's the only time they've ever seen one in real life. So we reach out to those people. We teach a class that's, look, you don't have to fire a gun. You don't even have to touch a real gun, but I will teach you to make a firearm safe if you or your child or someone in your family comes across one, because that's something you need to know. We teach that class. We also go out and we go into different communities. We work with Piper with the Pink Pistols. We work with other Pink Pistol groups. We work with Maj Touré with Black Guns Matter. We build coalitions to go out and reach out to people who are not traditionally the focus of the gun community and try to bring them in. And then we do education in the gun community of, hey, there's all these other people out here who are interested. How do you reach them? The best thing that you can do go check out our literature. We have a table. Sean Fraser, who's my vice president for California, was nice enough to drive down from LA today. Go talk to Sean, go learn more about us. I think the number one thing that we need to do in the community, and one of the things we forget, is that the narrative is Parkland and Vegas and Pulse and Texas. We don't talk about the fact that 300 million guns are not used for that. What they're used for is going to the range and having fun. Take somebody who is a non-shooter to the range and don't talk politics. Say, I want to introduce you to my hobby. Come on, this is kind of fun. And don't start them with a 45, take your 22. Go out with something that's fun to shoot, or take your shotgun. Shooting trap is amazing. Take something that's not so scary and go out and take somebody who's never seen a gun anywhere but on a cop's hip and introduce them to what we really like to do, which is go to the range and shoot clay or paper. That's the thing you can go do.
Thank you. One of the biggest challenges we all have, and I'm going to have the group answer this as kind of our last panel question, then we're going to open it up for some questions. How do we know what candidates are truly pro-Second Amendment? It's easy to stand up there, and we've seen it at every level in politics. It's easy to stand up there and say, I got you covered. No one's going to come take your guns. We want you to have all your rights. And then as soon as they're in office, things change. How do we know who's truly focused on this and truly interested in preserving our rights?
I have a way to address that. What we do at the Liberal Gun Club before we endorse a candidate is we send them our positions. And it's not just are you pro or anti-Second Amendment. It's how do you feel about root cause mitigation? How do you feel about these several issues that have to do with guns? What do you think about the definition of an assault weapon? How do you feel about issuing CCWs? How do you feel about CCW reciprocity? Find out, ask them more detailed questions than, hey, are you going to support my right to have a gun? Well, they might, but that gun might be a shotgun. They can say yes to that, drill down.
Yeah, I've never heard a politician say that no, they're not going to support your right to have a gun. To her point, I've never heard them say that. They never say that, right? They all.
You need to spend some time in Sacramento.
I've heard them.
But they all, and then they all try to take away your guns. But it's really, frankly, can be very complicated. But it goes back to being engaged, checking out, okay, well, what do they say in public? What's their voting record? And on the local level, it's actually really difficult to find a voting record. It's impossible. Some of them don't vote on Second Amendment issues at all. So we've done things like we came up with a pledge. We signed a pledge, and the first pledge we came up with was a softball. All it says is, hey, before something Second Amendment related comes up, will you just agree to sit down and talk with us? If they can't sign that, they're truly hostile towards us. I mean, that's just a softball. But it creates a voting record, right? Well, they wouldn't sign the pledge, or they did sign the pledge. Okay, well, that's a mark in the plus column. But I've started to categorize politicians into 4 different categories. There are people that are with you, and they'll actually do something about it. There are people that are with you, and they won't do something about it. They kind of tell you, oh, yeah, don't worry, I'm pro-gun, but let's not tell anybody. Let's not talk to voters about that. And then there's the people that are against you and don't really do anything about it. And then there are people that are against you and they do something about it. And guess which is the most dangerous of those 3? It's this one, the one that says, I'm with you and I'm not going to do anything about it. By far the most dangerous in that group. Everybody else, you pretty much know where they stand. But when you need somebody, that person that says, well, yeah, I'm pro-gun, but look, I'm just, I'm going to vote this way on this one, and let's all just go be friends. No. We need people that, will stand up, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. And the only way to figure that out is to put them through a test, like, get them to vote on something, get them to make a statement, get them to come out for something publicly, and then, see how much they squirm. If they squirm, they're not your friend. If they stand up and say, yeah, let's do this, let's work together and do this, then they're your friend. One of the big successes we had was a proclamation in Santee, where all 5 voted to ask our sheriff to change his CCW policies. And we kind of went into that. We pretty much knew who was with us, but there were a couple of people that we didn't even approach first. We just said, all right, let's see what happens. Let's test them. And all 5 of them said, yeah, we want to stand up to this. Particularly a guy named Rob McNellis, who actually started a dialogue that he eventually published with the sheriff. And you know, that's the kind of thing we need. We need people standing up, doing it publicly, taking the votes, even if it's a hard vote. And you know, that's how you can tell. That's how you can tell. Don't trust. I guess trust but verify. But don't believe everything they say. Believe what they do. And when they do vote against you, you know, just because they have an R by their name, you know, don't give them a pass. That's right. Don't give them a pass, or whatever they have by their name. You know, don't give them a pass. I mean, a vote's important. You know, treat it like it's the most crucial thing that they do, because it really is in their political career, is what they vote on and how. So,
Greg, you swim in some pretty dangerous waters. What's the best way?
Yeah. I think that and Mike really kind of hit the nail on it. Looking at their past performance is the best indicator. There are a lot of people out there who claim that because they have an R after their name that they are pro Second Amendment, and that's all. We ought to just assume that, well, hey, they're pro gun. And that's not necessarily the case, because what I have found is that there are many Republican legislators who are as uninformed on firearms and firearms policy as Democrats are. They simply will just look at, okay, well, who's for this and who's against it? And, you know, and I want you to understand, I say this from the context of an organization that specifically, I mean, we are, at least amongst even legislators in the Capitol, we are known as the purists. We are there are times where we have often taken positions opposite law enforcement, because law enforcement organizations, rank and file law enforcement, generally, I think every poll I've seen has been somewhere around 80 to 90% support the individual right to keep and bear arms. Unfortunately, though, the union leaders or the lobbyists that represent them in the state capitol have often not supported gun owners. And a lot of times what will happen is we'll see certain members with an R after their name say, well, this law enforcement group supports it, so I'm going to follow them. And there's often times where you're going to see a schism, and sometimes that's a good indicator of where someone is on the Second Amendment. Are they going to support the law enforcement unions, or are they going to support gun owners? Looking at their records. Sometimes, I hate to say this, sometimes you're going to have to look at what they say before, make a decision based on that information, and then follow their voting record. See what they voted and how they voted, or the bills that they've sponsored or that they've authored and co-authored. And that will give you an indicator as to where they are. I'll give you an example. And then, by the way, communicate to other people about those things. And I'll give you an example. Prior to 2016, 2015, there were 4 Republicans who actually had voted poorly who basically had voted to ban guns or to get rid of campus carry. In the 2016 elections, 3 of those 4 Republican legislators, were gone because organizations like mine made it a point to call them out and let people know. Because, by the way, gun owners tend to be, if you look, anti-gun voters are not single-issue voters. They generally are not. If they're not going to vote for you because they don't like your position on guns, they're going to find another reason why they don't like you. And that's just it. But pro-gun voters are more likely to be single-issue voters. And so when pro-gun voters in your district know that you're not a good vote, they will not vote for anybody as opposed to vote for you. Now, on the other side, we had 6 Democrats who voted against those bans, who had A ratings with us as well as with gun owners of California. Guess what? All 6 Democrats got reelected. All 6 of them, because in no small part because gun owners, many of which are Republicans, crossed party lines and voted for the pro-gun Democrat. So once again, it's about holding them accountable and not rewarding bad behavior. When someone decides that they're going to vote to ban your guns or restrict or limit your rights, you got to stand up to them, and you got to vote. You have to vote against them.
Hey,
Yeah.
Craig's
anybody-
right on. I can't tell you how many times, well, I'll approach somebody and say, hey, we need you to do this, and they say no, and then I say, all right, and I go tell all the members, and I go on Carl DeMaio, and I talk about it, and then I write an op-ed about it, and then they come back to me and say, well, this isn't how we do things. And then they do what we need them to do. So, all right, it's how we do things now, so.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I can't tell you the number of times where literally all we've had to do was spend money on once again, on Facebook, on a particular item, and all we do is we just pull up who do we want to see it? People who like these gun stores in this person's district. Next thing you know, we're getting phone calls from legislators. Why are all of these people calling me because so-and-so and so-and-so? I'm like, all we did was tell them how you voted. Don't get mad at us. Tell you what, you want us to tell them something different? Do something different.
There it is.
So let's open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions for the panel?
Hey, I have a question about our San Diego County Sheriff's run. And so there's, Bill Gore, and then we've got this Commander Dave Myers running. And I was at a meet and greet forum a few weeks ago where Dave Myers was there, and a retired sheriff's deputy stood up, and in the Q&A session, she asked a question, and she seemed to be implying that he was wishy-washy about guns or gun control. And then second, part B of that question, recently it was in the news that the sheriff's deputies' labor union is not supporting him. They kind of made an announcement about it. And so I really support the guy, but it spooked me. And I wondered if you guys could comment on that.
Well, we've probably endorsed Dave Myers for sheriff, and we've spent over 2 years vetting him and talking about solely Second Amendment issues. But like Craig said earlier, you're talking about the Deputy Sheriff's Association. That's not a Second Amendment organization. That's an organization that works to get sheriff's deputies paid more money. It's that simple. There's not a whole lot more to their organization than that. So they're going to say a whole lot and try to do a whole lot to put doubt in your head about the quality of Dave Myers as an employee of the Sheriff's Department. But the fact remains, he's been there for over 32 years, and the guy he's running against, who's criticizing him, promoted him to commander. And commander's pretty high. There should be no question as to the quality of his work as a deputy sheriff over his 32-year career. I've met every time I see somebody in uniform, I ask him about Dave Myers, and he gets glowing reviews until I get to the command staff. And then all of a sudden, the folks that are real close with the current sheriff aren't so fond of him. And all that started, oh, by the way, around the time he started running for sheriff. So we look at three things when we endorse. We look at their Second Amendment position. We look at their viability as a candidate. So even if they love the Second Amendment, if they've raised $7 and that's, they're not a viable candidate. And we're not going to ask you to put your time and money into their campaign if they're not doing the right things to get elected. And the third thing we look at is character. And when we looked at all three of these, on our board, and our board's got close to 30 people, you have to get a 3/4 or 3/4 majority to get endorsed, and he got that. And again, that's after years of endorsement, or years of vetting, and he earned it.
I just want to thank Mike, more a statement than a question. I am just about ready to get my concealed carry, and I thought you'd be interested to hear. So when Peruta versus Gore came up, I went in to get my concealed carry. I was told no chance. I went ahead with it. Was told, it's on hold. You're never going to get it. So I went in after I saw the article on San Diego County gun owners, and immediately went in. This was in late December, I think, and with exactly the same information, they said you're going to get it. They said, you've got a very good chance. So I just want to thank you. And for anybody else that hasn't gone through it, if you're thinking about it, it's very open right now. I think I'm within a week or two of getting mine. And, in my business and what I do and with my wife, I will now be able to protect myself. So thank you so much for what you've done.
Congratulations, very good.
Right on, yeah, well done.
So real quick, there were a number of changes in September that we worked with the Sheriff's Department on. If you haven't been to our YouTube channel, go to our YouTube channel. We have an 8-minute video on how to get your CCW. So please, can I take a quick poll real quick? Who here has applied in the last few months? Okay, cool. Who here has not applied but wants to? Okay, all those hands up, go to our YouTube channel, watch this video, and apply. We're seeing, since September, not one person has been turned down due to good cause.
And who has them? Like, who here has them?
Well, I don't want to, that guy, but I don't want to, that's a personal question. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is for Laura.
Yeah,
I never heard of your organization, but God bless you,
thank you.
honestly. I think it's great that you're, well, I don't think it's so great that you're liberal, but it's great that,
I do, that's okay.
but since you are, but you're doing a lot of good for gun owners and gun rights. So I have two real quick questions. So that I can better discuss this with one of my family members who doesn't like the NRA, doesn't like guns, just blanket, I don't like guns, there's no place for them, just the cops and the military. Okay. So your brochure says here, we provide a voice to the gun owners who do not subscribe to the right-wing rhetoric surrounding firearm ownership. So to educate me, so that when I talk to her, I don't spew out some of this right-wing rhetoric that your organization doesn't subscribe to. So what is that? What is right-wing rhetoric?
So, Dana Loesch videos, we are the clenched fist of freedom, you must join us to protect all your rights. No, you can join multiple organizations, or you don't have to join the NRA, you don't have to join the Liberal Gun Club. To protect your freedom, what you need to do is call your legislators. So whether they're Democrats or Republicans, one of the things, no offense to Mr. Hawkins, but one of the things that happens to me a lot is if I do a lot of national and international press, and my articles will get picked up. And when they get picked up by things like Breitbart, I get statements like, and this is a quote from a Breitbart comment section, "The only good liberal is a dead liberal, let's start with her."
Jeez.
I'm not kidding. That doesn't help. Liberals are stupid. Liberals can't, I don't want a liberal to have a gun, they might shoot me. Really? Let's not talk about a civil war. That's the kind of thing, people in this room are not engaging in that rhetoric, but that rhetoric is definitely out there. Yeah. And so to not be talking about guns are only for conservatives. The last I checked, the Second Amendment was for everybody. And one of the things our organization says is that we support every single civil right for every single person. And that's really important to say to people, this is your right. They've literally never been told this. This is a right that you have, and it is as important as your other, this is a civil right. Talk about it in that framework.
Very good. Very good
I think that helps. And also one of the things that I talk about is it's not an illogical thing to be afraid of what you've been told is going to kill your children. And that is what people on the left are told all the time. Guns kill kids. We need to change that. And that's why I say go out and talk about the fact that it's fun. We do a bad job of that. The defense thing doesn't always play very well on the left. There's a bunch of scientific studies about that people who are conservative and people who are liberal have really different views of how dangerous the world is. And so to a lot of people, they just think you're crazy when you're saying I need to go defend myself. Against what? Just leave that aside and talk about, yeah, I mean, we all know, being in this room, we all care about that. But if we start changing that rhetoric and just talk about the fact that this is my hobby, it's something I like. You like me, I'm not crazy. You're not afraid of me. Come with me, I'll keep you safe. Let's go do something. We can go do this safely.
That's a great answer. One last quick thing, because I know she's going to ask me this. She has been bombarded, like we all have, from the media, saying that an AR-15 is only built for killing people, and it is only built as a weapon of war. Now, when she says, does this organization that you want me to consider, do they support the NRA, and do they support that position? Or do they not support that position? In other words, do you support the position of she's right? They are only built to kill people, and I know you don't, but how do I say that to her that isn't going to be like just I'm being defensive?
Tell her, have her come look at our website. It's theliberalgunclub.com. We have a really good blog with original content we've generated, and we have some stuff on AR-15s in particular. One of the things I'd try to do is say, you know what, we're not going to go shoot an AR-15. Let's go shoot a handgun, and just say let's not talk about that, and try to get that gun is not the opening, okay? AR-15s are contentious. People don't understand them. They're full semi-automatic weapons, right? I mean, I think that is just the craziest thing ever, right? I have had
That's what the
friends
media says constantly.
constantly, and it's really tough. But my answer to a lot of my friends is, I don't support bans because bans don't work. It's not that I don't want to keep my kids safe. I have a 9-year-old who's in school. I just don't think this is going to do anything. I want to talk to you about the ideas that I have. And for her, go look at this organization. They have ideas of what they think are really going to keep somebody safe. Go look at, hey, here's some other ideas. They actually care about keeping the kids safe.
Good, thank you very much.
All right, so these are the last 3 questions in there. Let's try and keep it real quick here, so we're kind of running out of time.
Hi, and thank you. Kind of towards Mike there, I did go on your website. I am a member of your organization, and
Thank you.
I followed what you suggested in that video. And about 2 weeks ago, I went down for my CCW license, and they looked it over, liked everything, said, okay, we'll set you up for the second meeting. And then they called me back. The guy that I met with, a super nice guy, he calls me back and he says, well, he said, you don't have a California license. You have to get a California license. He said, can you go down and get that? And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, just go get a California license. I said, no. I am a homeowner here, a business owner here. I pay property tax, personal tax, business tax, city tax for the business, county tax, federal tax, California tax, and I own a home in Wisconsin. So I traveled
Go
there.
Packers.
Pardon?
Go Packers.
Yeah, amen, eh? I like that. So I go back there. It's a
Yeah. I'll tell
hunting
you what-
resort, a little cabin there where I do a lot of hunting and fishing. And so I got a license there. It was this summer I transferred my license over to Wisconsin because I was paying outrageous amounts of money for a deer license, to go deer hunting. And I thought, man, this is crazy, Then I want to go get some game birds and stuff, and
So, okay, so you're having difficulty with your CCW because you don't have a
Yeah,
California.
and-
All right, let's talk about it offline. Let's you and I sit down and chat
Okay.
about it. But it is a very Wisconsin thing that you don't want to get a California driver's license because your deer tag will go up. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and forth. I go there and get a license, and come back here, get a license.
Yeah.
Go back there, get a license, come back. For 2 years, I'm fighting it.
Let's talk offline and we'll figure it out.
Well, and then one other thing is I carry 2 CCW licenses, one from Minnesota, one from Florida. I went to a class in Wisconsin and got my Minnesota and Florida license, which allows me to carry just about in every state except about 3 or 4 of them. And I'm also got an expert marksman shipping my DD-214 from the military. And, when I travel back and forth, I carry.
Yeah,
But then I can't when I come in here. It's stupid.
I know it is. Let's talk offline though.
Okay.
Yep.
If I can just speak just real quick to that, one of the things we found is that we've done Records Act requests for every single sheriff, every single issuing authority in the entire state of California. And one of the things that we found is that there are a lot of very well-meaning departments that have policies that are not consistent with California law. And so one of the things that we work really hard to do, and it's important that we make sure that, unfortunately, that we make sure that the people in charge with enforcing the law actually know and understand the law. Sometimes they add stuff to it, and there's some really great sheriffs. We had one sheriff in El Dorado County who had a policy, well, if you weren't a citizen, you couldn't get a concealed carry permit. Well, guess what? That's not consistent with the law. We informed him of that, showed him the information, he changed his policy. We were suing Sacramento County And then in comes our current sheriff, Sheriff Scott Jones. We sat down with him, helped him craft a policy. We've gone from 250 concealed carry permits 7 years ago to now over 8,000 concealed carry permits in Sacramento County. In many cases, that's why that activism, that connecting with your local candidates and local elected officials is so important. They need to know that you're there, that you're paying attention, and that you have an eye, you know what the law is. And really that your goal is not necessarily to beat them over the head with it. It's more to kind of say, look, we want to help you be in compliance with the law so that we can fully exercise our rights.
Yeah, his current policy, the sheriff in San Diego County, his current policy is only better than it was a few months ago. We're not totally done yet. It's not great, but it's better than it was. And if we can just continue to make it better tomorrow than it was yesterday, we're going to continue to win. So I don't want to, for the most part, we haven't seen anybody turn down for good cause. So for the most part, if you live in San Diego, you can get a CCW, but the policy's not exactly where we want it to be yet, but it's a huge step forward.
Okay, two quick questions.
All right, I already know most of you guys, so, and I probably know the answer to this question, but they may not, is a lot of people can't make it to board meetings and go up to Sacramento and speak at these you always have them in the middle of the day, during the week kind of stuff. How do you suggest these people reach out to their local and state legislators in a way that they can get it on what they want to say on the record? You know, I already know the answer, but you could probably inform everybody.
Well, one important thing, if you can't do that, it means you have a job and you're a productive taxpayer.
Yeah, exactly.
Citizen,
Which most of us do.
which is fantastic. Sit down once a year and join the organizations, because they're the ones that are they're doing this on your behalf, and we got to be able to say, hey, we represent this many thousand people. So join Firearm Policy Coalition, join San Diego County Gun Owners, join NRA and Liberal Government, everybody, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and tell you who not to or who to. Join the groups, and don't just join one, join as many as you agree with. I tell people to write a letter, write an email, right? Write an email, print it out and fax it, and then fold it up and mail it, and then call them and read it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, because I do that currently, and I tell everyone.
You just nailed it.
Yeah.
All right.
Telephone calls are really important. They actually log, especially in DC and Sacramento to some extent. Telephone calls are far, far more important than emails. Telephone calls are actually logged for and against. Leave messages. When big things happen, lines get blown up, and sometimes the lines are full and you can't get through. Keep trying.
I'll tell you, and we're very strategic in terms of when we have people call. One time we call them fire missions, and we specifically had people call a member because I was meeting with that member. And it wakes them up when members are not able to, when they're dealing with constituents calling, all of a sudden they're listening, and sometimes you have to be the squeaky wheel. And sometimes in particular, if it's specifically targeted, that's vitally important. Making sure you contact your elected officials, because a lot of times it's good to contact members of a committee, for example, at the state legislature who are voting, contacting them, letting them know how to vote, but also contacting your legislator, because many cases they have systems that they record when a constituent contacts them. So, like when he said, send them an email, print it out, mail it, or fax it, then mail it, and then call them. Every single one of those contacts gets recorded by that office. And so they know who's calling them and who's contacting them. And oftentimes, we're the silent majority. They say we're the silent majority. A lot of times, because they don't hear from us, they don't know that we're out there. Now, the other advantage is not everybody does that, which means that if they get 100 emails or 1,000 emails on a particular subject, they assume that represents 100 to 1,000 times more people, which means that it has an even greater impact. But taking the time to do those things will make all the difference in the world.
And don't just assume that, they've always been anti, so they're always going to be anti. I mean, there's a million examples that Craig and I can probably cite
Yeah, I
of
reach
people who
out
have
to
flipped.
even
Reach out.
all sides, because we're nonpartisan, our organization. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Next question.
Thank you again so much for you guys doing this. And Mr. Schwartz, I'm seriously considering membership in your group. It sounds sounds intriguing.
Thank you, sir.
Stranger. So I kind of want to defocus on guns for a second, because one of the things that happens to me when I engage, and I'm over in La Jolla, I engage a lot of people that are not gun people. And of course, these conversations come up in certain personal groups of mine. So I focus on, I'm a member of American Warrior Society, which is not just firearms, but blade concepts and hand combatives and medical. And right after Vegas, I was posting classes. Chris Bush over at Poway Weapons and Gear started running those trauma classes. Anyway, I guess my question is, the gun solution is the last solution. Up until then, my right to an arm is also my right to have a knife, all these things. Any ideas from you guys on how we can, those people that are anti-gun, that we can engage them in to be pro-defense, knowing what you guys know?
I have two organizations that I highly recommend. One is Personal Defense Network. They focus a lot on guns, but they do an amazing.
That's Rob Pincus's group.
Pincus.
Yeah.
Rob is.
He's the best.
Rob and Grant
Yeah.
are two of my favorite people in the Second Amendment world. I know them both. They are excellent, and they put out really excellent content.
We just chatted today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Julie Loeffler and some other women have started the Women's Defense Network. She also speaks on PDN, but she's there. That's a national organization. It just started. They launched it at SHOT. I was part of the launch. For women, it's going to be an online. You don't have to go to a class in person. It has amazing, amazing content. You don't have to be a woman to benefit from it, but it's self-defense, how to use your elbows and your knees, how to use a knife, what is a knife for, what's a defensive knife versus what's the knife that's going to cut you out of your seatbelt, what is personal defense. Both of those organizations, I highly recommend. You can send people to both of those.
I would also say, one of the big things that I've been speaking in particular with members who have not traditionally voted for the right to keep and bear arms, has been the concept and the understanding of firearm safety. Like, even if you never, ever, ever want a young person in your community to have a firearm, if they come across one, you want them to know and understand how to, what should they do? What is the safe way to properly, if their friends are starting to handle, whatever it is, how do you do those things? But promoting and actually talking about firearm safety is something that everybody should be doing and promoting.
And it's such a shame Eddie Eagle is tightly NRA, yes. It's an NRA thing, and we so need that,
Oh yeah, no, you are, there's another organization called Project Kid Safe through NSSF. Yep. All of these various things, promoting those as ways, and once again, I promote those to be, I don't care if you're pro-gun or not. I'm like, look, on this case, everybody needs to know and understand firearm safety. They need to know the four basic rules. Sure. They need all the things that they need to know and understand. And for many, that may simply be their introduction into understanding firearms. And for many of them, they'll go beyond that. I have a twin brother. We're fraternal, but I have a twin brother who is a diehard liberal Democrat. And I introduced him to firearms, and now, not only that, now he's getting his CCW, and he's a firm believer in the Second Amendment. He didn't believe in the whole tyrannical government part until Trump got elected. Now he's against the idea of a tyrannical government.
Now he's on board.
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, starting with talking about firearm safety is a great way to introduce people into getting into that, into those discussions.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I have absolutely failed at my job of keeping my panelists on the time clock, so we're a little bit behind here. But I want to thank the panel for being up here and answering the questions. Everybody will be available afterwards to answer any more questions.
Without someone doing something about it, it's not going to get any better.